In the beginning, it was actually scary. Now I feel like, again, hadn't I gone through it, I wouldn't be where I am now. My relationship with Christ, it has just reached a peak. And I don't want to be cliche-ish and say another level, because I don't want to say that. It's at a place where I've desired for it to be. I'm a dreamer, for those that know me. Just being able to communicate with God. God gives me dreams. He speaks to me. It's just at a place that I've yearned for to go back to. I was on a road, right? I was going. Anybody that knows me, last year I was speaking, I was traveling, I was doing all kinds of things. And I felt like, no, I'm grateful God slowed me down. I'm grateful God slowed me down. I am. Because it gave me an opportunity to kind of put things in perspective. And now my perspective is God first in everything, even more so. Listen, we have an exciting show coming up for the holidays. Gene's Favorite Things. You don't want to miss it. Go to YouTube, make sure you subscribe, but make sure you put in the comments, hashtag Gene Favorite Things. Make sure you put hashtag Gene's Favorite Things in the comments below. See you then.
Man up. I know what you're trying to say, right? I know that you're trying to say, handle your business. If you want to question my masculinity, like a schoolyard circle of curses, like a sword fight with lightsaber erections, save your breath, because contrary to what you may believe, not every problem can be solved by growing a pair. You cannot arm wrestle your way out of depression. The CEO of the company that just laid you off does not care how much you bench, and I promise there is no light beer in the universe full-bodied enough to make you love yourself. Man up, okay, that's that new superhero, right? Like mild-mannered supplement salesman Mark Manstrong says the magic words man up and then transforms into the 5 o'clock shadow, the massively muscled, deep-voiced, leather duster-wearing Superman who defends the world from, I don't know, feelings. Man up. I want to have meaningful emotional relationships with my brothers. Man up. I want to be weak sometimes. Man up. I want to be strong in a way that isn't about physical power or dominance. Man up. I want to talk to my father about something other than sports. Man up. I want to be who I am. Man up. No.
This is going to be a very serious discussion tonight, but yet necessary. According to Oxford English Dictionary, the term man up is to demonstrate toughness, courage. It's interesting that men have to go through this when they are faced with difficult situations. Some men even find the term man up insulting. What do you say? In 2018, the BBC News reported that a survey shows 61% of 18 to 24-year-olds expect a man to man up when facing a challenge. So tonight, I have two men with me, and we're going to engage in a conversation to just that. Is manning up really the answer? Thank you for joining me tonight on Real Talk with Gene Price. I am so excited to introduce my first guest. None other than a pastor, an entrepreneur, a CEO, a Fortune 500 company owner. He is my husband. He's been my boyfriend. I am so excited to introduce at this moment, at this time, Pastor Derek Price. Thank you for joining us, Pastor Price. All right, we're having a little technical difficulty. So while we're waiting for Pastor to join us, I'm going to ask that you have an opportunity at this moment to go tell your brothers, your uncles, your fathers, your husbands, your sons. They might want to tune in tonight. You might want to hear what two men are going to talk about and what their experiences have been when it comes to manning up in the face of adversity. And at this time, Pastor Price is going to join me. Welcome, Pastor Price, to Real Talk with Gene Price. Welcome, Derek. How are you, sir?
Okay. Can you hear me?
You're down just a little low.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
All right. Okay, good. Wonderful.
How are you? Thank you for joining me tonight on Real Talk. Again, it's a pleasure always having you on the show. We do have Pastor Darrell Wilson, who will be joining us shortly, and they will let us know when he is on board. But tonight, Pastor, we are going to be engaging in a very interesting topic.
Mm-hmm.
Is manning up really the answer? So I'm going to start off with you tonight, Pastor, and I'm just going to start off arbitrarily with a question. What does manning up mean to you?
I knew I knew that would be the first question.
Listen, you get the hard stuff out the way.
I'm probably not, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm probably not the best person to answer that question because it's a new generation vernacular. I assume it means just be a man or toughen up. So when my father said stop crying like a girl, that means the same thing, I guess, today where they say man up, don't show any emotion, just be a man, whatever that is.
Well, let's go in this direction, Pastor, and thank you for sharing that because you said something that's very interesting. That sometimes with young men and young boys, they're taught that they should not show any emotions. Of course, I'm not a man. I don't have any sons. And, you can maybe can relate to this as a young man growing up with your dad when he was in the home. What was it like for you as a young boy? Did you feel that you needed those emotions, those ties, those connections with your father?
Mm, 100%. Yes. I think life would have been a lot different. I think I would have had probably less struggles if I had that connection to my dad. I don't know what is worse, not having a dad in your life or having a dad in your life that doesn't be a dad.
Okay.
So I certainly, and my relationship today is good with my father, but coming up, my father came from an environment and from a family, you know, um, a family dynamic where men didn't really communicate, didn't show an affection to the boys. They did to their daughters, but not to their sons. And my father brought that into his fatherhood when it came to me and my brother. Um, but I can tell you of just from experience that I needed that so desperately. And I'll tell you, Pastor Gene, even today,
Mhm.
though I have many successes,
Yes.
um, I have a prosperous business. I have a great family. I have a wonderful church. I think my self-esteem is good. Um, I still, even in my spirit, I still long for a father.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. You talk about longing for a father, longing for that relationship. And as you stated,
Mhm.
it did play a role in how you were growing up. So here you now, Pastor Price, you're a man. What is manhood then to you? You have childhood, there's if you're a young boy, boyhood, a young adulthood. Now you're a man. What is manhood to you?
Wow. What manhood should be, what it should be, it should be the culmination, the graduation from all the other hoods, from the boyhood to the teenagehood to adulthood, to fatherhood, marriagehood. It should be the graduation of all those stages. But if any of those stages encounter levels of pain, dysfunction, perversion, um, misery, it affects the next hood.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So the term Tony, let me just say this because Tony chimed in and he said it's worse. And worse, he capitalized not having a dad in your life at all. And Tony's also talking from his experience. Um, as you were growing up, Pastor Price, you mentioned, the stage you were with your dad being in your life or not being in your life and how it did affect you. Here I am as a woman and as your wife, of course. I didn't have my dad in my life. And that role of the man manning up and taking responsibility, my father, it played a role in my life. I grew up not understanding what it was like to have that kind of covering. You know what I'm saying? That a dad would have for his daughter. So there's so many different areas and ways we can begin to now go into talking about manning up. But I really want to hone in on the emotional side for a second, because like I was stating earlier, young boys sometimes are taught, yo, man up. You don't have to show emotion. But what do you say to the little boy that had a bad dream, that wants to run to his father and cry and say, Dad, I'm scared? What is it? What do you do in something like that? The young boys get scared from bad dreams like young girls.
Yeah, I think we do our I think men do their sons and even their encounter with boys is always one of that machoism, macho man. You know the song. I want to be a macho man, and macho means you don't show any emotion. You don't show, and even I remember when I would cry. Someone would say, boys don't cry. Well, it's not true. Um, Jesus wept. So to say that boys don't cry, um, it, it it's so it's so anti-human. It's so anti not to be able to display emotions, and it's amazing, Pastor Gene. The only emotion that we seem to, as men, seem to be okay with is the emotion of anger.
That's interesting. That's good. That's good. Veronique chimed in too, Pastor Price, and said young boys need physical affection from their dads. Veronique also said manning up means taking responsibility for your actions. And we're going to continue this conversation, but I'm going to introduce my guest that's going to be along with us today, Pastor, on this platform. Pastor Darrell Wilson is on, and he's going to be chiming in. Pastor Wilson, this is Pastor Price. Pastor Price, this is Pastor Wilson.
Very nice to meet you, sir.
Pleasure.
Pastor Wilson, we've already began our discussion on is manning up really the answer? And we've been having a great conversation starting at the bottom as a young boy, where someone would say to a young boy, you got to man up. You're not supposed to show emotions. And Pastor Price so beautifully chimed in a little bit about what it was like for him growing up as a young boy and having his dad. And we have a guest tonight, that Tony, who chimed in and said the worst thing is not having your dad in your life. So to the two of you, Tony also just said, my dad died when I was 3 years old. He was a victim of a homicide. Even now this is Tony, a guest, even now as an adult, he's 63 years old, it still bothers him. To date, his wife doesn't know how he feels. So can we, as we continue, thank you both pastors, as we continue talking about, is manning up really the answer? Is it pretending? So any one of you can kind of like jump in there if you like. And you got people watching, you have people listening. We're talking about manning up. What is the true essence of that? What does that cliche mean?
Well, if I may, I think it kind of lends itself to the individual man and what is his understanding of what a man is. Because if which is very common now, if you're not raised by a father, if you're not raised by a man, then what is your role model for what a man actually is? See, because we teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are. So if you're learning what manhood is from a mother, an aunt, a grandmother, your perspective of manhood is going to be totally different from someone who was raised by a father.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to also look at those who are raised by a father and raised by a stepdad.
Mm-hmm.
Because see, those dynamics are going to be different, whether we actually think about it along those terms or not. It's going to be different. So understanding um, for the individual man, what is his definition of a man? Because manning up, it's like Pastor Price just said a few minutes ago, we're taught from a very, very young age not to show emotion.
Yes.
You fall down and scrape your knee or your elbow and you're bleeding, and that's what you're told. Big boys don't cry.
Mm.
So you're taught at a very young age to suppress your emotions. So when you're in pain, what's normal for you? To hold it in,
Right. Right.
to not share it. And that's why I always say we have to be very, very careful of what our normal is.
Wow.
Because you've done something a certain way for a long period of time doesn't mean that it's normal.
That's good.
It's only normal to you because that's the only way that you've done things. But to the next person, your normal may not be so normal.
Wow. Pastor Price, would you like to chime in on that? What Pastor Dara was saying about
Yeah,
okay.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think we don't realize sometimes the power of emulation. We emulate what we see.
That's good.
Um, and if there's nothing in the home to see, then we will emulate those role models that we see on TV, um,
Mhm.
that we see in the music industry, and those become our standard for manhood. The reason why, if normally I'm really upbeat when we have these conversations, and um, I'm smiling, but the more when you started, the more I think about it, I just realize how many layers. It's like peeling an onion. We've got so many layers to deal with when it comes to this subject, Pastor Gene, and I know we're not going to be able to exhaust it. When you'll do this again, but it needs to be done. We need to stay with it because there's a lot to drill down into when it comes to our manhood, and I'll say this because most of the people that are viewing us, most of them, not all, but most of them are preachers, are pastors, are Christians, brothers and sisters that know the Lord. But it's the one thing we don't talk about.
Yes.
The very culture of church is geared to women and not to men.
Wow.
And it's again, so if you notice why I'm the look I have, I mean, you're my wife, you know me better than anyone else. It's just because I realize that this is a real heavy,
Topic.
it is. And
Yes, sir.
you know, and I appreciate Pastor Darrell. I appreciate you being on with me. This is our first time connecting. But I really think that we can do better at talking about this issue. We need to get, have these kind of discussions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. About 2 weekends ago, I took the liberty of doing what I called a celebration of men.
Mhm.
And that celebration of men consisted of men from different facets of life. I had three brothers that were scheduled. Two of them was able to make it. One of them couldn't make it because that same day he lost his brother. And all three of these brothers are formerly incarcerated men who I have relationships with that I admire. And all three of these men who were incarcerated for many years has come back into society and they're doing great things. One of the brothers, he just released his book that he wrote called Choir Boy.
Mm.
And I don't know if you're familiar. There's this show that comes on that 50 Cent wrote called. It's about this guy who was in prison and became an attorney. I'm trying to think of the name of the show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Is it Life or something like that?
For Life.
Yeah. Yes.
It's called For Life.
Yes.
He's been in For Life about 3 or 4 times, and it's so ironic because of his history and his background. That he would be cast in a role that takes place in prison.
Yes.
So I wanted to celebrate these brothers because I think that what we don't do enough of is acknowledge one another and uplift one another, encourage one another,
Yes.
and let one another know that I appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
So it was these three men who, well, two of them that spoke, but then I had other brothers that spoke who were musicians, who were pioneers in musicians. One of the gentlemen who managed me for about 3 years was percussionist for Luther Vandross for over 20 years. And he spoke.
mm.
And then I had a few other guys who were entrepreneurs. I had them to speak. And then I had my nephew who was on the front lines in Dallas, Texas, as a respiratory therapist. I had him speak. He talked about COVID and he broke that thing down in layman terms
Mm-hmm.
so that everybody could understand what this virus is, what it does, and so on and so forth. So, what you're talking about, Pastor Price, as far as doing this and how it's needed,
Yes.
definitely needed in our communities. And one of the things that I feel right now, seriously, is that our churches are failing at things that they should be good at.
Wow. That's powerful.
And I don't know if it's being recognized because women have always been the backbone of the Black church.
They have.
Always been the backbone. I'm a PK. So I grew up in church. I'm the youngest of 6 siblings. My dad, when the doors of the church opened, it wasn't an option. We had to be there. We were the choir. My mom, my brother was on the organ, my sister was on the piano, and the rest of us was in the choir with my mother. And my dad was in the pulpit. It
Wow.
wasn't an option. So now you have everything else that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
where ministry is concerned, but where are the men?
Right. That's
Where are
good.
the brothers? On Sundays, they home, before COVID, they was home on Sundays watching the NFL and washing their cars while the women was in service. That's normal. That's normal. So what is it that the church is doing to draw them in?
Right. Right.
Because see, our ministry that I have with my wife and our son, our ministry was one that went beyond the walls of the church, because everybody is not sitting in somebody's church on a Sunday morning.
Right.
Prior to COVID, everybody wasn't sitting in somebody's church on Sunday morning. What about those people out there? Who's reaching those people out there? Jesus didn't stay in one place, and he didn't come to the same place every Sunday morning. He went preaching to the world, to the nations.
Yes.
So what about the people out there? Who's trying to reach them? Because it comes to a point where on Sunday mornings we're preaching to the choir. What about the folks out there that's not sitting in somebody's church on a Sunday morning?
So then let me ask you this question, Pastor Price and Pastor Darrell, based on our dialogue thus far. We're talking about the dynamics of
Mhm.
the Black church. We're talking about growing up without dads. Can we dare dive in and say that there are some men there, therefore are living a life or a world of make believe. This is what I mean. If the term is out there, man up, and you can't man up, whether you know how to do it or not, if men are pretending, then how do we help them? And I mean, I didn't even say me as a woman. How do you guys help them? Because men might feel the pressure, right, to perform in whatever way that might be. So then a man that's listening to you right now, how do we help them get past the facade and they can't man up because of the pressure? Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Pastor Price, if you want to jump in first, I just want, because there are men that are listening to you both. Literally, I'm looking at the comments, and even like Tony's commenting again. What do you say to them? Because to your point, it's mostly women in church trying to get a man in church. Women are raising sons. So what do we do, Pastor Price?
Well, we have a challenge as pastors to reach men. And we've been doing that. I took the challenge about a month ago. I said, listen, we've been in this COVID. I've been a little detached from our men. So I started to have these Friday night Zoom meetings with the men. And I didn't want to just have a Bible study because my men know me. I'm very transparent. And we said, listen, we want to have some discussion about real men's issue and sexuality, how we identify ourselves, self-sabotage. So we kind of talk about all of these different things because I think the church for so long, the context of the church has just been, the hoop, the holla, make them feel good, works for the sisters. There's a lot of emotion in church, euphorism in the church, but men are not like that. We're not built like that. We're not going to run and jump and dance and shout. But we will hear the word, and we will, talk if we feel comfortable. We have to feel, because listen, we have one thing I know about men. We though we are tough, we seem to be tough. We have very, very, sensitive egos, if you very sensitive egos.
Right.
And if we feel we're not in a comfortable place, that someone's going to judge us, we're not going to open up. We're not going to talk. So I think Pastor hit on it. I realize I may not reach all the men in church, but I need to reach as many men as I can,
Yes,
in
sir.
church and out of church.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes we think the end result to a kingdom of God experience is to get somebody saved. I don't think that everybody we reach is going to be saved, but everybody we reach can be impacted.
That's good.
And
That's
I think impacting, and I give you an example, even the young men in my church. Listen, even the brothers today, if I greet my brother-in-law in church, I greet him with a kiss.
Mm-hmm.
I greet some of the men. Now somebody say, Pastor, that's a problem because somebody could be dealing with something, but I'm just telling you, from a man, I take, I'm affectionate with the brothers. I'm going to give them a hug.
Yeah.
I'm going to, I'll grab a brother, the young brother. I said, listen, man, I love you. I want you to know I love you.
That's
and
right.
I noticed that when I tell some brothers I love them, they don't respond back with I love you too.
Right. That's right.
Because they've never experienced a man saying I love you.
That's right.
And there may be some people view and say, Pastor must be on the down low. Listen, my wife knows me. I'm mad. There's nothing that's me, but I'm affectionate. And I'm not ashamed to display that kind of love to the brother, because we all need that. We need that affirmation. We need that love.
Yes, sir.
And I think that, and it's hard for me to say this because I while I'm talking, in my mind, I feel such conviction that I'm not doing enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to do more. And I'm going to tell you, Pastor Gene, what I see.
Okay.
I see a culture and a society that is playing into the destruction of Black men. Because we look around and we see all on the internet, we see, girls rock. We see girls this, girls that, and nobody's talking about these young boys.
That's right.
Nobody's discussing about these young boys. And we got, we got Obama, Michelle Obama. She's getting all this limelight, and we got other people talking about women and women. But I rarely see anything that's talking about helping boys.
Yeah.
If the premier family in the Black community is the Obamas, like the Huxtables, then you would think you would have a Obama doing the same thing that his wife is doing on the other side, but we don't see that.
Right.
Wow.
So, and Pastor, you can chime in, tell me your perspective on this, but I think there's a real demonic conspiracy, a demonic plan against Black boys.
Absolutely.
And I think it's been this way, and it's continuing. And I think the world is playing into it. And I think families and churches are as well. And we got to do something about it.
I totally agree.
Wow.
I totally agree. There's a gentleman who wrote this book series. It's 2 books. I went to a conference that he had in Detroit many years ago. His name is Juwanza Kunjufu. And Juwanza Kunjufu wrote this book called "Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Young Black Boys," volumes 1 and volume 2.
Wow.
This book came out with around the time when, I don't know if you guys remember, Shahrazad Ali. Shahrazad Ali was a female Malcolm. And they would do everything that they possibly could to silence her, but she wouldn't be silenced. So I totally agree with what you're talking about. See, here's the thing. See, as Black men, we got it twisted. We have it twisted. Giving a brother a hug, saying I love you, giving a brother a kiss on the cheek, takes a strong man.
Yes.
It takes a man who's confident in who he is, at knowing who he is. There's a lot of 30, 40, and 50-year-old grown boys out here.
Yes.
A lot.
Yes.
See, a lot of them suffer from heart conditions. What do I mean? They suffer from matters of the heart.
Yes.
And then you have those who suffer from hard, HARD conditions. There's a distinction between the two.
That's right.
And a lot of brothers today are struggling with trying to find out who they are. It's astounding to me at what's being produced nowadays, where Black men are concerned, as being husbands and being fathers. See, because any boy can make a baby, but it takes a man to be a father.
That's right. That's right.
They are not one and the same. And in dealing with couples and dealing with marriages and dealing with relationships, brothers have to understand that because you are a male doesn't mean that it's automatic that you are head of household. That's an earned title. Because I know a lot of 30, 40, 50-year-old men that's sitting out on the couch playing video games all day long. And when the expectancy comes from, your woman who's working all day or raising the kids and doing something, take out the garbage, wash the dishes. If they're not taught to be these things, how successful is that marriage going to be? And you have children raising children.
That's right.
So the cycle continues.
Yes.
The cycle continues. See,
before you continue, Pastor Darrell, if you just put that thought right there, guys, stay tuned. We're just going to take a quick commercial. This is so good because I had no idea the direction it was going to go, but I'm telling you, you both are dropping some powerful nuggets. Is manning up really the answer? We'll be right back after this commercial break. Thank you, Pastor. Have you been enjoying the show? Make sure you comment and like. Tell us what you want to talk about. It might be featured on the next Real Talk with Gene Price.
Man up. I know what you're trying to say, right? I know that you're trying to say, handle your business. If you want to question my masculinity, like a schoolyard circle of curses, like a sword fight with lightsaber erections, save your breath, because contrary to what you may believe, not every problem can be solved by growing a pair. You cannot arm wrestle your way out of depression. The CEO of the company that just laid you off does not care how much you bench, and I promise there is no light beer in the universe full-bodied enough to make you love yourself. Man up, okay, that's that new superhero, right? Like mild-mannered supplement salesman Mark Manstrong says the magic words man up and then transforms into the 5 o'clock shadow, the massively muscled, deep-voiced, leather duster-wearing Superman who defends the world from, I don't know, feelings. Man up. I want to have meaningful emotional relationships with my brothers. Man up. I want to be weak sometimes. Man up. I want to be strong in a way that isn't about physical power or dominance. Man up. I want to talk to my father about something other than sports. Man up. I want to be who I am. Man up. No.
Wow. Wow. Welcome back to Real Talk. This has been such a heavy discussion. And for those that are viewing, listen, and for those that are chiming in, you can still get people to watch. Come on in tonight. We've been talking from the perspective, is manning up really the answer? And we are peeling back like an onion, the layers to what manning up is really about. And I just want to welcome back my guests, Pastor Price and Pastor Darrell. Just the revelation that you both are given. And before we went to commercial break, Pastor Darrell was expounding a little bit on where we were going. And I'm just going to ask if you just take another couple of seconds and talk about that, because there's another direction that's going to, I want to go in another direction with this as well. Just continue, Pastor Darrell.
Well, it's important for us to, to come out of our heads and start listening with our hearts. Because what we have to also realize is that our mouths is tied to those who love us and to those who we love. So what we say really, really does matter. And sometimes as men, we avoid certain topics and conversations because we don't want the truthful answer, but we want a truthful relationship. And the two of them are not synonymous.
Interesting.
Hard conversations are hard. That's why they call them hard conversations. But we don't want to have those hard conversations because oftentimes those hard conversations requires us to be accountable.
Yes.
To someone. And a lot of men, they don't want to be held accountable to anybody. They just want to do them.
Right.
Wow.
Our guest tonight, our viewer tonight, Tony Clark, chimed in and he said he had a program a few years ago entitled, "Is There a Man in the House?" That's good. And it was geared to almost like what we're doing tonight, talking about the manhood. Is manning up really the answer? So my question to the two of you would be, how do we begin to heal the wounds, though? How do we begin to heal the wounds that hurt manhood? Because I think in the beginning, before Pastor Darrell came on, Pastor Price, we were talking about those little boys, that there's some hurts as you grow up as men. And sometimes, even with women, but in this case, men, the man grows up physically, but inside is still the little boy. So how do we help heal the wounds to that?
May I?
Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir.
So, Pastor Dean, the church is God's authorized agent in the earth realm for change, for true transition, for salvation, reconciliation comes through the church. the church has to change.
Mm.
Until we are able to look at how we do church, the dynamic of church, how the thermostat is set in the church for women, but not for men.
Mm.
Until that changes, men are not going to come in, because the only way to change, to really change a person's life, and I said it before, that we got to go out and have influence and impact. They never get saved. But the truth of the matter, there's a drawing from the gospel.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Why are black men coming into church? Because the gospel we preach is a Eurocentric gospel. The gospel we preach, it doesn't appeal to men. The Muslims appeal to men. The Indians appeal to men. The black Muslim appeal to men. Why doesn't this appeal to men? And it's because everything, and see, the world has gotten smarter.
Yeah.
So when we got churches that still have European depictions of Christ as white, the average man and teenager is going to look at church and say, "No, I'm not going there."
Mm-hmm.
So we got to change it. We got to change the attitude that preachers have, that all they have to do now when they arrive is put their chain in their pocket, take
Yes.
the title, and preach, and seem to be aloof from everyone else. Men are not going to be drawn to that.
Wow.
We're blessed in our ministry to have a good number of men,
Yes.
but that's because of what's being preached. And I'm not putting myself on a pedestal at all. I'm just saying to you that I come from an experience that's different than most pastors.
Yes.
You know, and Pastor, I come through the prison system.
Yeah.
I come from the days, I know, when I preach I witnessed to the black Muslim. I witnessed to imams. So I know how to deal when it comes to the intellectual side, to convince people, make them understand that Jesus is Lord.
Right.
But I also understood you can't bring this Eurocentric, you can't be this European depiction of Christianity. And that's where we have to change. And we got to go back and tell our people, need to know where they really come from.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our black men need to know. And Pastor Gene, I'm going to say this because you know how how I feel about it. It's when we can start showing, let me say it like this real quick, 20 seconds. The harvest is plentiful, and it still is. The laborers are few. And notice what Jesus said: pray the Lord of the harvest that he would send out. That word send, that Greek word send, means to force out, force them out, push them out. God has to change the church if the church is going to win men.
Amen.
Okay. We're going to have to do a part 2 to this, because there's like people chiming in, and I have to get both of your perspectives on this. This is so good. Shalana brought up something, and Tony brought up something. Let me just read this. Shalana said, I've been dealing with this issue with my son for a few years now. As single mothers, we try to make up for the father not being there, and we end up overcompensating. I feel like I have enabled some behaviors because I don't understand what's it like to be a man. With the knowledge as a parent who raised 2 girls first, I feel I did the best. I feel I did the best of what I knew at the time, but I wish I had more knowledge of raising a son and knowing what he needed. Pastor Darrell, can you just take a couple of seconds just to kind of ponder and kind of help Shalana with that? Because then I got to bring in something that Tony said, because it's really true to both of you. Single mothers are raising sons. Pastor Darrell.
Absolutely. And it's a lot more common now than it's ever been.
Yes.
Ever been. And now you have an influx now of blended families.
Yes.
So when you have a breakdown among you, then there's a breakdown within you. And you have to address what that is. See, for Shalana, being able to raise a son, this is one of the things that I've learned is that with mothers, it's very easy for mothers to raise their daughters and love their sons.
Mm.
Even where there's two parents in the household,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
they raise their daughters and they love their sons.
Wow.
That's something that mothers have to look at and be able to distinguish between those two things. Um, we talk about our wives and our daughters being queens, but then we have the sons who are
Mm.
supposed to be the kings, but our sons have cracks in their crowns.
Oh, yeah.
So the jewels aren't placed, they're
Mm.
not positioned the way they should be. So, what are the things that are out of balance in their crown, in their fears,
Mm.
in their vainness, in their unaccountability, in their selfishness, in their hearts, in their compassions and accountability? What is it? Because, see, God created us to be different. Men, women, our responsibilities is not the same.
Right.
It's not the same. So there's only so much that a woman can teach a young boy in becoming a man. It takes
Yeah.
a man to teach a boy how to be a man.
Yes, that is true. Yeah,
Period.
that's true.
Period.
That's true. That is true.
So I give her, kudos for doing, like I said earlier, we teach what we know and we reproduce who we are. She was teaching what she knew.
Yes.
Now, what she knew, where did it come from? Did it come from her mother?
Mm.
Because if she learned what she's teaching her son from her mother, there's still a lack there.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's the importance of having a father,
Yeah.
raising a son.
Yeah.
And
This,
we don't always get it right.
and we don't. That is true,
We
Pastor.
don't always get it right.
That
You
is so true. We don't.
So
Nobody gave us a manuscript on how to do it, right?
there is none, really.
There is none.
You know,
This has been such a powerful show. People writing in the comments, part two, like.
mm,
So if the two of you would agree, we would like the two of you to come back. We'll check your schedules. But I just wanted to say one thing to both Pastor Price before Pastor Darrell helped with Shalana's question. You were kind of talking about your stance as a pastor and how you are with the men. Tony chimed in and agreed with you, but he also said this, and this is something to think about. He said, "I agree, sir, but in some cases, the pastor is in the same condition. So it's like, how do you help someone when he's in the same boat?"
Well, I think I think that's not such a bad place if you're honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
In the same boat, you lean on God and say, okay, how can we change this? The problem is when we operate in this level of duplicity where we're trying to pretend that we're one thing and then living something else. I think we just got to be honest that we don't know, we're not there, and we need to lean on God on how to get there. I was saying Sunday to some of the saints, I was saying to the church rather, not to my church, that one of the incubators for character,
Mm-hmm.
resilience, all right, good character, resilience, and endurance is
Yes.
adversity.
Yes.
It's hardness. One of the problems I think that, and I see this with a lot of the young mothers today, they treat their sons, and the pastor was talking about, they treat their sons like their boyfriends. They treat their sons like their husbands, and I got a problem with that. When your child, you wake up in the morning and ask him what he wants for breakfast and what he wants for dinner. You almost wait on him hand and foot because he's a son. And then you don't, there's no discipline in his life. You give him everything he wants. If you're parenting a child, as a mother, parenting your child, a son, that son needs hardness.
Mm.
Hardness is
Mm.
what develops manhood.
Yes, sir.
If you notice any of those great men of God that we look at in scripture and we look at them, we see God took them out of the home and put them in areas of adversity. So you take a Joseph, adversity, 13 years as a slave, part of that 13 years in prison. You take Abraham leaving Mesopotamia. You take David having to leave his home because Saul is trying to kill him. And yet all of these people, it didn't kill them. It made them better. It pulled out the best in them. I think some of the problem is, and the church can do better at teaching. See, we got to provide the help for mothers. And in our preaching, we got to say some of this stuff. We got to say, hey, mothers, don't treat your sons like you're your boyfriends. They need to take out the garbage.
Yes,
They
sir.
need to be consistent. They need to know they need to be denied sneakers sometimes. They need to be denied the games. Don't let the game be their teacher. Don't let the game be their babysitter. No. Sit down, have dinner with them, sit down, make them express themselves, make them talk. There's a lot of different things we can do that the Holy Ghost will give us this, but culture is teaching us instead of the Holy Ghost teaching us.
Amen.
You know what?
Listen, if we're not willing to fall on our own, life will tear you down. And see, if we use dishonesty to make ourselves look good, we're being dishonest. If we're making ourselves look good by being dishonest, that's manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
And see, people who operate in that function, crowns are crooked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just that simple.
That's right.
That's
It's
good.
just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Pastors who operate from that vantage point and that perspective, their crown is crooked because you have a larger responsibility to the people that you have been chosen to lead. If you're misleading them, if you're manipulating them, if you're using them to build your brand, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's a problem. And I've seen it too many times.
Wow.
Too many times. And some of them have become so good at making dysfunction look normal.
Look normal. Wow.
That's
Wow.
good.
I don't even want to stop. I promise you, I don't. I feel like the conversation is so deep, so heavy, so relevant, and so necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to stop due to time. But we have to do part two. Pastor Price, I think our membership has its privileges. I know I can get him to come back. I will have the team reach out to you. I really mean this with all my heart. Hearing the revelation of the two of you talk about what's so necessarily needed for our Black culture, for our Black men, for our Black young boys. Thank you. And I think I can speak for all the women that are on here. Ladies, if you could put up a hand raised, if you could do a couple of clapping some hands. Can we salute these two pastors tonight? We take our hats off to the two of you. We salute the two of you tonight for taking the challenge to help us see, even as women, the revelation that the two of you spoke of tonight. Jules, like you talked about the crown, Jules, and people are clapping. Omika, thank you. Paula, thank you. Pastor Crouch, thank you. Stacy, thank you. I wish you can see the women. We're saluting the two of you.
Amen.
We Shalana, yes. Part two. We want the two of you to help us assist our culture in straightening up the crown. And that's exactly what we can call the next show, the straightening up of the King's crown.
Amen.
I hope you hear me tonight. I know they hear me. They got it. That's the title of the next show, part two. Pastor Price, Pastor Darrell, thank you so much. We appreciate you. 2 hours. Listen.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Yes. Listen to me. To our viewing audience tonight, thank you for joining us on Real Talk. Listen, this has been great. hit us up in Messenger. Let us know how you felt about the show. Just a couple of announcements before we go, though. Jean's favorite thing has come down to the wire. You have until this Friday, December 11th, to go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember to put hashtag Jean favorite things, because guess what? The winners are being chosen on Friday. It might be you, and then you get an opportunity to be on my show. Thank you tonight for joining us on Real Talk. We'll see you next week. Again, to our guests tonight, Pastor Price and Pastor Darrell, thank you for helping us understand a little more. Is manning up really the answer? We're going to find out again on part 2. We'll see you soon. Good night. Listen, we have an exciting show coming up for the holidays. Jean's favorite things. You don't want to miss it. Go to YouTube, make sure you subscribe, but make sure you put in the comments, hashtag Jean favorite things. Make sure you put hashtag Jean's favorite things in the comments below. See you then.